No one in the galaxy expected anything strange that cycle. The stars burned the same way, the trade ships moved along their normal routes, and the great peaceful councils of different species prepared for another quiet year. The galaxy had been calm for so long that many young aliens believed war was just a story, like something from an old bedtime tale. But peace never lasts forever. And it ended on a cold, silent day when the first signal arrived. It happened in the region known as the Dead Fringe. That part of space was empty, dark, and avoided by everyone. There were no planets, no stations, no colonies, and no reason for anyone to go there. Some species said strange things lived in that region. Others said it was cursed. Most simply ignored it and traveled around. When the signal hit the sensors of the Karen Coalition listening posts, the machines woke up in shock. Lights flashed. Sirens screamed. Technicians jumped from their seats. Everyone stared at the screens, confused and afraid. "What is that?" asked one Karen officer, his hands shaking. No one answered. The signal was not recognized. It was not from any known species. It was not a distress message. It was not a trade request. It was not a patrol transmission. It was a deep hum, like a heartbeat in space, steady and powerful, pulsing again and again. Within hours, the Karen High Council called an emergency meeting. Leaders of dozens of species gathered in a large silver hall that floated above the peaceful sky of their capital world. Some came with excitement. Others came with fear. All of them came with curiosity. The Karen Chancellor, an old alien with long antennas and calm eyes, stood at the center of the hall and spoke. "A signal has arrived from the Dead Fringe," he said. "It repeats. It grows stronger. We do not know the sender." Murmurs spread across the room. Some diplomats whispered that it could be a new peaceful civilization. Some scientists hoped it was a lost species finally returning. A few military advisors warned that unknown always meant danger. But in the end, the council decided on a hopeful choice rather than a fearful one. "We will send an expedition," the chancellor declared. "Not soldiers, but ambassadors. Not warships, but science ships. We will welcome whoever is calling." In the peaceful galaxy, this was normal. For centuries, diplomacy had worked better than war. Species shared books, art, and food. They exchanged stories about their worlds. They solved problems with words, not guns. There was harmony, and most believed it would last forever. So the Karen Coalition began preparations. Engineers built new communication modules. Scholars studied ancient star maps. Diplomats practiced polite greetings in over 100 languages. Artists painted banners with symbols of peace. There was excitement in every corner of society. Before departure, the fleet assembled in orbit above the Karen capital. It was a beautiful sight. Giant silver ships glowing blue with energy. Smaller escort vessels decorated with peaceful colors. Research cruisers filled with books, sensors, scientists, and translators. Everyone believed they were about to meet new friends. There were no warships. They did not even consider them necessary. The galaxy had forgotten how to fear. When the fleet finally set course for the Dead Fringe, billions of aliens watched from their screens. Children waved tiny flags. Teachers told students they were witnessing history. Old citizens cried with joy, remembering the old days when new species were discovered without bloodshed. The fleet entered hyperspace, leaving trails of blue light behind. The journey took long weeks. The crew spent their time talking about what they might find. Some expected a gentle plant-like species that sang through vibrations. Others hoped for wise beings that lived inside gas giants. Some dreamed of beautiful winged races dancing in the clouds of new worlds, but when they reached the Dead Fringe, they found nothing at first. Only darkness. Only cold. Only silence. The starless void stretched around them like a great empty ocean. The scientists felt uneasy. The diplomats felt confused. The admirals felt something they had not felt in centuries: fear. Then the signal returned, louder than before. It hit every ship like a thunderbolt. The screens flickered. The lights dimmed. The communications crackled. Something was coming. Something huge. Something not like anything they had ever seen. And as the fleet held position in silence, hearts beating fast, one thought passed through every mind. The galaxy had no idea who was about to appear. The fleet waited in silence. Every eye, every sensor, every mind was fixed on the empty dark ahead. Days had passed and nothing moved. The dead fringe had lived up to its name. The stars seemed dimmer here, and the cold of space pressed against the hulls of the ships. Then, without warning, the void tore open. It was not a gentle ripple. It was a violent rupture, like a wound in space itself. The Karen fleet shivered as hundreds of shapes appeared, moving fast and precise. They were enormous ships, dark and angular, with jagged edges that reflected no light. They made no friendly hums, no welcoming signals, no gestures of peace. Only engines that screamed like wild beasts. The diplomats froze. The scholars gasped. The young aliens whispered to each other, afraid to breathe too loudly. What are they? A student whispered, pointing at the screens. They are not from any system we know, one scholar said. Their designs, their technology. It is brutal, efficient, not decorative, not friendly. The alien scientists scrolled through records, trying to find anything similar. Nothing matched. Their shields, hulls, and engines were strange, unpredictable, and dangerous. These were not exploration vessels. They were designed for survival and combat. And yet, they moved with calm precision, scanning the Karen fleet like hunters watching prey. A tiny alien officer clutched a railing. Do they want war? The answer came slowly. A voice, deep and calm, filled the communication channels. It was not melodic. It did not sound alien at all. It was harsh, clipped, and terrifyingly simple. This is Humanity Vanguard. Identify yourselves. The room went silent. Humanity? A species no one had ever heard of. They spoke directly. No translator filters, no polite protocol. Only one sentence. The diplomats scrambled to respond. Greetings. We are the Karen Coalition. We come in peace. We wish to welcome you to the stars. The human response did not come immediately. The ships circled, scanning every angle, reading every signal, counting every crew member. Their machines and sensors moved like extensions of their minds. They were careful. They were deliberate. And they were not afraid. Finally, the human voice spoke again. Calm, firm, certain, we acknowledge your intent. Stand by. The Karen fleet did not move for a moment. The word stand by carried weight. It was not threatening. It was not dismissive. But it made every alien feel something deep and unsettling. Respect, power, a hint of danger that no one could ignore. For the first time, the scholars whispered together, fear and awe mixing in their voices. They are unlike anything we have ever seen. Their presence, it feels alive. No one could explain it. Their ships were not massive like the capital worlds of other empires, but their energy radiated strength. Every sensor on the Karen fleet was alive, detecting small changes in gravity, radiation, and energy. It was as if the humans were reading them back, silently measuring, silently judging. Some young Karen officers wanted to test their intentions. They suggested moving closer, opening comms with a friendly greeting, showing small gifts of art and music. But their superiors stopped them. One admiral said quietly, "Do not make a single move. Watch, learn, survive." And so the Karen fleet stayed frozen in space, staring at the humans, trying to understand a species that seemed impossible. Their scouts reported strange readings. Machines that repaired themselves in seconds. Engines that absorbed energy without overheating. Weapons that hummed, ready, but not fired. Hours passed. The humans did not attack. They did not move aggressively. They only scanned, observed, and waited. The aliens began to realize something important. These beings were not reckless. They were not curious in the same way. They were not kind, at least not in the gentle, diplomatic sense the galaxy knew. But they were precise, prepared, and deadly if provoked. One Karen scientist whispered to his colleague, voice shaking, This is a species that survived its home because nothing else could. Not peace, not weakness. Only strength and intelligence kept them alive. The diplomats, for the first time, felt a new emotion. Not fear alone, not awe alone, but something heavier, responsibility, because the galaxy had no idea what it had just awakened, and far ahead in the darkness. The human ships moved like shadows over steel. Scanning, learning, waiting. No one could see their faces. No one could guess their intent. Only one thought filled the minds of the watching aliens. These humans were different, and the universe had no idea what was coming next. The silence lasted for days. The Korean fleet and the human ships drifted in the dead fringe, separated by miles of empty space, watching each other, neither fully trusting, neither moving too close. The aliens tried to understand. They studied every pattern, every signal, every movement. Nothing fit any model they had ever seen. Finally, a young Karen diplomat dared to ask the question that had burned in every mind. Where do you come from? What world shaped you? For a moment, nothing responded. Then the human voice returned, calm, unshakable, as if the answer were obvious. Earth, the word spread through the fleet like a shockwave. Earth, the translators blinked, recalculating. Records of that planet were incomplete, almost myth. A small blue world, long ignored by the galaxy's great empires. Nothing dangerous. Nothing remarkable. Then the system's database updated. Planet class, Deathworld, Tier 10. The Karen officers froze. Scholars paled. Tier 10. That classification existed for worlds that tested life itself at every turn. Worlds where storms tore mountains apart, where predators hunted in packs so large they could wipe out entire populations in hours. Planets where poison was everywhere, water, soil, air, even fruit. Planets where diseases mutated faster than any vaccine, and survival meant cunning, strength, and endurance. Tier 10. One scientist whispered, her voice shaking, No species survives that. It is impossible. But these humans had survived. Not just survived, they had thrived. The Karen fleet's sensors read the ships, their weapons, their engines, and suddenly, everything made sense. Humans were not designed for diplomacy or comfort. They were designed for survival in a universe that had no mercy. They had learned to fight, to endure, to adapt, in ways that the peaceful galaxy could barely imagine. One of the younger diplomats, trembling, asked the question that burned in every heart. Are they dangerous? The older alien answered slowly, looking at the screens. Not because they want to be, but because the galaxy itself will seem weak to them. They will protect, yes, but anyone who threatens life will face them. A low murmur spread through the fleet. Some aliens felt fear for the first time in centuries. Others felt awe. Humans were terrifying but not reckless. They were sharp. They were fast. They were calculated. And in their silence, they carried an unspoken warning. Do not test us. The Karen scientists tried to imagine life on such a world. Endless storms, with lightning hotter than small suns. Predators that could crush buildings in a single bite. Plants that could poison the unwary in seconds. Every day a test. Every night a danger. Humanity had grown up in a world that was hostile to life itself, and they had learned not just to survive, but to fight back, to master, to dominate. Even the diplomats, who had spent years in calm halls of peace, felt a shiver. These were not beings molded by comfort. They were forged by struggle. Every word they spoke, every decision they made, carried the weight of survival. The human ships began moving slowly, circling the Karen fleet again, scanning. But there was no aggression. Only caution. Only observation. Only awareness. And yet, the aliens realized something more. These humans, shaped by their death world, had not forgotten empathy. They had not forgotten compassion. Their readiness for war was matched by a readiness to protect. The Karen fleets, fragile and peaceful, would not survive alone. But these humans, they would protect them, if asked. One officer leaned close to the comm panel, whispering to himself. They could destroy us, yet they wait. They could take everything, yet they hold back. They understand life differently than we ever could. The scholars nodded, scribbling notes furiously. This was not just a new species. This was a new standard. A species that challenged everything the galaxy believed about survival, strength, and morality. Across the fleet, the young diplomats and officers stared at the screens, imagining the humans walking the surface of their homeworld, growing stronger with every storm, smarter with every danger, harder with every predator. And in the quiet corners of their minds, they realized the truth. This species had no equal. The galaxy had never seen Deathworlders like them before. And when the humans finally transmitted again, simply saying, "We are ready to continue," the Karen fleet understood. These beings did not threaten for the sake of conquest. But anyone who tried to harm life would soon wish they had never crossed them. In that moment, the peaceful aliens felt a strange mixture of fear, hope, and admiration. They had discovered not just a new species. They had discovered the edge of survival itself. The galaxy had no idea what it had awakened. The humans remained in orbit around the dead fringe, quiet but ever watchful. The Karen fleet, once confident, now felt a strange tension in the emptiness of space. Every movement of the human ships was measured, deliberate, precise. Not reckless, not curious in the way the peaceful aliens expected. Calm, calculated, alive. The diplomats tried to speak again, sending messages of peace. "We wish to share knowledge. We wish to welcome you. Let us meet." The human response was slower than expected. It was not refusal. It was not dismissal. It was deliberate silence. And silence, in the galaxy, often meant danger. A young Karen officer, anxious and inexperienced, made a small mistake. A shuttle was sent to drift closer to the human perimeter, carrying gifts, data crystals filled with art, music, and histories of the galaxy. It was supposed to be a gesture of goodwill. The humans noticed instantly. Their sensors lit up. Engines hummed. Weapon systems shifted, carefully aligning. The aliens froze, panic spreading through the fleet. "Stop! Stop!" the diplomats screamed over the channel. "It is a gift. It is not an attack." But the humans held their positions. They did not fire. They did not move closer. They scanned. They measured. Every second stretched like an eternity. The alien crew could feel their hearts racing. Finally, after long minutes, the human voice returned. Calm and steady. "We detect no threat. Proceed." The shuttle was allowed to pass. It carried its gifts to the human ships. And then, something unexpected happened. The humans opened the shuttle, repaired its systems, scanned its crew, and returned it safely to the Karen fleet. No harm, no insult, no threat, only protection. The Karen diplomats stared in disbelief. They had never seen such behavior. A species that could have destroyed the shuttle in an instant had instead ensured its safety. What are they?" One officer whispered, still trembling. "They are Human, an older scholar replied. But that word no longer seems enough. They are cautious. They are strong. And they understand life differently than we ever could. The incident sparked heated discussion among the fleet. Some officers wanted to retreat, to distance themselves from what they now called the Deathworlders. Others wanted to push closer, to learn from them, to witness their strength firsthand. The scholars argued. They are not reckless. They will not attack unless provoked. But do not mistake patience for weakness. They will protect life. And they will destroy anything that threatens it. It became clear that the humans followed a code the Karen had never encountered. They were cautious because they had seen worlds that killed easily. They were prepared because their home had demanded it. They were precise because mistakes meant death. The aliens also began to notice small details. The humans moved with confidence. Their machines repaired themselves in seconds. Their energy shields shifted before collisions even happened. Their communications were minimal, but each word carried meaning. Every silence carried even more. The Karen fleet learned another lesson. Misunderstanding could be deadly. A small misstep, an innocent gesture, could trigger a reaction the galaxy had not yet seen. The humans did not act out of anger or fear. They acted out of understanding. They acted out of survival. Yet, even in this tense silence, there was something else, a strange respect. The aliens began to feel it in their hearts. The humans were not friends yet. They were not enemies. But they were beings who had survived the impossible. They were alive and they were powerful. And if needed, they could defend life in ways the galaxy had long forgotten. One Karen diplomat whispered to the young officer next to him. Voice low and reverent. We could lose everything, and they could still hold the line. And yet, they wait. They do not strike first. It was an understanding the galaxy would take centuries to process. A species that survived its own death world had no reason to rush. But when it moved with certainty, precision, and unshakable purpose. The Karen fleet realized the truth. Humanity was different. Their power was not for conquest. Their strength was not for pride. It was for survival, protection, and judgment. And as the fleet drifted silently, watching the human ships, one thought passed through every mind. Heavy and real, the galaxy had never seen patience so dangerous, nor silence so powerful. And in that quiet, one truth became clear. The humans were not here to play the peaceful games of diplomats. They were here to survive, to protect, and to remind the galaxy of what real strength could be. The dead fringe had been silent for centuries. But now, with the humans watching, the silence felt alive. It waited, it listened. And the galaxy would never be the same again. The calm did not last. The Karen fleet, though uneasy around the humans, believed at least that no one would dare enter the dead fringe. But then the warning lights began flashing. Alarms screamed across every ship. Sensors went wild. A swarm was approaching. Not a single ship. Not a single fleet. Hundreds. Thousands. Screaming machines and organic beasts melded into one unstoppable force. The feral swarm had returned. The Karen fleet panicked immediately. Diplomats and scholars scattered to safe zones. Civilian vessels tried to retreat, but there was nowhere to go. The swarm moved faster than any ship in recorded history, striking without thought or mercy. Their jaws, claws, and weapons ripped through shields in seconds. Their screams pierced combs, filling the ears of every alien with horror. The coalition had long forgotten war. They had no soldiers, no weapons trained for combat. Their fleets were beautiful, precise, and peaceful. Now they realized their designs were useless against creatures born to kill. Hold position. Hold position, shouted the Karen admiral. His voice cracked. Do something. The humans did not wait. Engage all systems. A calm, firm voice echoed through channels. Protect them. Do not fail. And then the humans moved. The Deathworlders from Earth struck like living storms. Their ships surged forward, cutting through the swarm with calculated fury. Weapons flared, but not recklessly. Railguns and kinetic projectiles smashed the swarm's front lines. Boarding pods dropped, and human soldiers poured into the enemy ships with brutal precision. They fought with ferocity, not out of hatred, but out of instinct honed for survival. The Kareen watched in awe. They had never seen anything like it. Small alien shuttles destroyed swarms 10 times their size. Humans moved inside enemy ships, dismantling engines, redirecting power, and disabling weapons with surgical skill. Their efficiency was terrifying. One diplomat whispered, trembling, They are unstoppable." And yet, even in the chaos, the humans were careful. They did not fire on ships that were already retreating. They did not harm civilians. They took no unnecessary risks. Every action was precise. Every strike measured. Every life weighed. The swarm screamed, furious at resistance. Their organic growls mixed with mechanical shrieks. They had never encountered an enemy like this. These humans did not panic. These humans did not fear. These humans did not flee. One Karen officer muttered under his breath, staring at the screens. They fight like the storms of their planet. Everything alive is dangerous. Everything alive is tested. And they have survived. The battle raged for hours. The Karen fleet, inspired by human courage, began to recover. Civilian ships learned from human strategies, evading attacks, retreating in patterns that reduced casualties. Scholars and engineers worked feverishly to reinforce shields and redirect energy. But nothing could match the humans. They were everywhere at once, moving faster than the eye could track. Striking where needed, protecting where necessary. Leading when there was no one else to lead. By the time the feral swarm finally began to retreat, the Karen fleet was stunned. Ships that had been on the verge of destruction were intact. Lives that should have been lost were saved. The humans had not only stopped the enemy, they had preserved hope. Silence fell over the battlefield. Only smoke and debris drifted in space. The survivors stared at the humans, realizing what they had witnessed. These were not soldiers seeking glory. These were protectors forged by a world that tested every moment of life. The lead human voice came over the com one final time. Calm as if no battle had occurred, all threats neutralized. Status report? Are they safe? The aliens could not speak. They only stared. Then, slowly, one Karen diplomat said, trembling with emotion, Yes. Yes, they are safe. All of us. The humans did not celebrate. They did not boast. They checked on their own ships, repaired minor damage, and prepared for the next possible attack. The Karen fleet realized the truth. These were not conquerors. These were guardians. A species that had survived the impossible on their homeworld, now willing to step into the galaxy to protect life that had forgotten how fragile it could be. One young officer, still in shock, whispered to his friend, They are something else. Something we could never be. They are Deathworlders. And in that moment, the Karen fleet knew the galaxy would never be the same again. Humanity had arrived. They were unstoppable. They were careful. They were merciless only when it mattered. And they were ready. The dead fringe had always been silent. But now, with the humans standing between life and destruction, it felt alive, tense, and full of possibilities. The galaxy had seen a new force. And nothing would ever forget it. The remnants of the feral swarm had scattered, but the danger was not over. The Karen fleet floated among debris, battered but alive, trying to understand what they had just witnessed. Their sensors buzzed endlessly, recording the precise movements of the human ships. Every alien aboard, every vessel felt the same heavy truth. These humans were not ordinary. From the lead human ship, The command voice was calm, measured, and terrifyingly confident. Form wedge formation. Sweep the debris. Scan for any remaining hostiles. Protect the fleet at all costs. And then the humans moved again. Their ships were like blades in space. Swift, sharp, and unstoppable. Where the swarm had fled, humans followed, not for revenge, but to ensure nothing could return. They struck with speed no one could anticipate, dismantling leftover enemy clusters before they could regroup. Boarding pods dropped silently from orbit, carrying soldiers trained not just for combat, but for survival in impossible conditions that the aliens could not keep up. Their ships were beautiful, delicate, and orderly. The humans' movements were chaotic only to an observer who did not understand the strategy. To the humans, every strike had a purpose. Every maneuver had a meaning. Nothing was wasted. Lives were preserved. Threats were eliminated. The Karen scholars whispered to one another in awe. "They fight like their planet fights them," one said. Every step measured, every strike honed, every move forged by storms, predators, and poison. Inside the boarding pods, human soldiers moved with lethal grace. They disabled engines, redirected power, and neutralized feral swarm soldiers with surgical precision. They spared those who could be captured for intelligence. They protected those who were innocent. Every action carried the weight of a species that had survived a world designed to kill them. At every turn, the Karen fleet was stunned. They had seen battles before, but never like this. Not with strategy. Not with restraint. Not with purpose. The humans were terrifying, yet admirable. Strong enough to destroy, wise enough not to. Brutal, yet careful. From the bridge of a Karen cruiser, a young officer spoke in awe. They fight with respect. Respect for life. Even for their enemies. I have never seen anything like this. One older officer nodded grimly. They are Deathworlders. That is why they survive. That is why they dominate. They do not attack without reason, but nothing stands in their way if life is at stake. As the last remnants of the feral swarm attempted to flee, human ships formed a perimeter, cutting off escape routes. Railguns and energy cannons flared, slicing through enemy craft that dared move too close. Boarding teams followed, ensuring no enemy vessel escaped. In minutes, the swarm was destroyed, leaving only silence, broken by drifting debris and the occasional damaged vessel. Even then, the humans did not celebrate. They moved among the Karen fleet, scanning for damage, checking on injured crew, and ensuring the survivors were safe. They repaired engines, stabilized shields, and offered assistance without hesitation. Their actions were calm, precise, and overwhelming in their competence. The Karen fleet realized something fundamental. Humans were not warriors in the way they understood. They were something else entirely. A species forged by hardship, tested by death itself, and refined by survival in the harshest conditions imaginable. They fought to protect life, not to destroy. They struck with force, but with purpose. They were guardians. The fleet's lead diplomat spoke over the comms, voice trembling. We do not know how to thank you. You have saved our lives, our civilization. But why? Why protect us? The human voice was calm, almost gentle, though still carrying authority. Because life is worth protecting. Because someone must stand when others cannot. That is enough. The Karen officers could not respond. They could not fully understand. They only stared at the screens, at the precise, lethal, and careful movements of the humans. And slowly, a new respect began to replace fear. One officer whispered, almost to himself, they could destroy entire fleets. And yet, they saved us. They are not conquerors. They are protectors. The silence of the dead fringe now felt different, alive, tense, full of meaning. The humans, the Deathworlders, had arrived. They had proven that survival was not just about strength, It was about courage, wisdom, and the will to protect. The galaxy had witnessed a force it could not ignore. The humans were here. And nothing, no species, no fleet, no enemy would ever see the stars the same way again. And in that quiet, heavy with awe, one thought settled in the minds of all watching. The Deathworlders from Earth had emerged. And the universe would never forget them. The battle had ended. Silence settled over the dead fringe once more, but it was a different kind of silence now. The Karen fleet floated among drifting debris, battered but alive. The civilians and scholars stared in awe at the humans, who moved through the fleet with calm purpose, checking every ship, ensuring every life was safe. The aliens could barely comprehend what they had seen. These humans had faced death and destruction with a certainty no one could match. They had fought not for glory or conquest, but because someone had to. Because life itself demanded protection. A young Karen officer looked at the human admiral and whispered, almost trembling, They could have destroyed us all, and yet, they didn't. They saved us." The admiral, an older alien who had survived centuries of diplomacy, nodded slowly. "They are Deathworlders. They come from a place where only the strong survive. But they are not cruel. They are not selfish. They fight for life, even when others cannot." The lead human ship,